about them Irish?
I can't take it anymore. I need a national championship.
This is the Horsemen Podcast.
Top of the morning, afternoon, or evening to you. I'm Dylan, joined by two clowns as always, Steve and P-Wagon, and we're finally here. The long-awaited, long-talked-about depth chart projection for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish is complete. My OCD brain that's been working on this for months has put it all together based on things that we've read, we've seen from the spring game, what we've heard, and gut instincts. And on top of that, it's really pretty. So you guys are going to see this on Twitter. That will come out with the podcast, so you can take a look for yourselves. But before we get into that, we got to talk about some news that happened since the last time we recorded. Ideally, this is about 10 to 15 minutes, so we'll be succinct with it because we're known for our succinctness. Steve, I'm going to you. Transfers. Kane Madden. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I will welcome an All-American onto our offensive line, especially after we just sent, was it 3 or 4 offensive linemen to the NFL draft, or the NFL in general. I think we had an undrafted free agent, but yeah, regardless, anytime that you lose 4 starting offensive linemen, if you can replace one of them with a second-team All-American, it was a shortened, weird COVID season, and yeah, he's from a mid-major program. I don't give a crap. He's obviously proved himself to have some sort of worth. He had some sort of draft stock last year, and the presumption is, especially being with the offensive line in Notre Dame, where we know we can develop quite well, that this guy's going to get better, he's going to perform well, and he's going to be a staple of the offense for this year. And if he's a one and done, totally fine with me. So welcome to the team, buddy, and let's go win a title. So that's my thoughts.
So for those of you who may have not followed this very closely, Kane Madden is a right guard from Marshall. And last season, in the season, not a preseason All-American, he was a 2020 second-team All-American guard. He's in his 6th season. This is his last one, so he went to the transfer portal. He didn't go to the draft, and some people think that is a sign that he's not that good. I disagree. I think he could not have gone to the draft for many reasons, including money, right? Getting drafted in the 7th round and getting drafted in the 3rd round is millions. So, don't use that to judge against him, but he's this highly profile guard. He was ranked near the top of the transfer portal on 24/7 and on The Athletic. He was bound for Florida State. Florida State was all over him. Their team on 24/7 put picks in for him. The fans were going nuts for him because Florida State has an abysmal offensive line. They did just take Dylan Gibbons, our own backup guard, in the portal. So they're looking for Kane Madden. Basically, Notre Dame makes this public pretty late. He visits Tallahassee, leaves, nothing happens. He arrives at Notre Dame, and within a day, he's committed to the Irish. Notre Dame's Notre Dame, and he's an offensive lineman. That's pretty much the story here. P, you're kind of a guru of, I don't know, unathletic white guys, so like linemen.
Rugby players, but yes.
Rugby players. What's your thoughts on this addition to what is a talented but very inexperienced offensive line at Notre Dame?
Well, that's what it is. It's the inexperience is what's going to kill us. It's the Ratro Spindler and Blake Fisher. Blake Fisher is probably going to start at left tackle, and you can't rely on youth against some of those better teams. Wisconsin, speaking of unathletic white guys, those are definitely going to eat up the offensive line if you have youth there. Kane Madden started in college football. Fun fact for the new listeners out there, we're 31 people away from 1,000, so subscribe and follow. I played college football, Division III. But the difference from high school to college, the speed is so much quicker. I had one scrimmage. I played 5 plays against a Division I team. And that defensive tackle moved at 17 million miles an hour, and I had no fucking idea what to do. I cup blocked him 3 times. He kicked me in the face once. So, to think that Division I linemen can go up against Division I talent right away is stupid. You need people who understand the game, who understand big pressure situations. Now, Marshall not exactly playing for a national championship or anything, but he's been there. He's been there for 5 years. He has talent that he can pass down to these other guys. It's a much needed addition. And anyone says, "Oh, well, he only played on Marshall and he sucked." Fuck you.
So in relation to this, we had a little bit of an interaction with Coach Brian Driscoll at Irish Breakdown. And I think we all have different opinions on him. I like his content. I have no problem with him. But he didn't think Kane Madden was very good. He evaluated him. By the way, he only sent us 1 game film, and I told him, you need to send more than 1 game film, or else that's not a good analysis. So I don't know how much film he's looked at, but he doesn't like Kane Madden. And we got into a little bit of a tango. Because I don't like to defer to authority, but when the Notre Dame coaching staff, the writers at The Athletic, the writers at 24/7, the voters in the Associated Press All-American selection, and on top of that, the statisticians at PFF, all are in huge agreement that Kane Madden is a huge talent. I just think that there's more weight to that evidence than just Brian's analysis, because people get it wrong. Nobody is right all the time. And it's possible Brian's completely right and all those other people are wrong. It's just there's a strength in number here from a lot of experts that get paid a lot of money to do these things. And on the balance there, I just trust those guys more. And that's not to say Brian's bad at what he does. I just think on this one, he might be looking for something that other people don't value as much, or maybe he's got some preferences to certain players already on the roster. I don't know what it is. We had a little bit of a discussion that kind of got wild. I'm in favor of this. I think you guys are both in favor of this move. At the very least, you're adding a starting caliber guard to this lineup, and as we're going to see in the depth chart, we're talented there. I like Andrew Kristovic. I like Carroll. We're trying to compete for a national championship, and I don't want to run 4 newcomers on the offensive line. If we can add a guy, I'll do that. So, you guys have any thoughts there?
Yeah, 2 things. You forgot Big Game Boomer. He ran Kane Madden in his top 25, so put some respect on that man's name. And the second thing is, we're the only fan base in the entire country that gets mad when people want to come to Notre Dame. So, yeah. Notre Dame fans are the worst. Every single one of them. Oh, well, why didn't he go to the draft? Maybe he wanted more money. Maybe he wanted more game film. They don't get mad. Clemson doesn't get mad when people come to their school. Bama fans don't get mad when they get a transfer in. Why is Notre Dame this ivory tower bullshit that everyone thinks, oh, you have to come here out of high school? We're not in 1970-something. Ara Parseghian doesn't accept walk-ons. We get it. You learn all your knowledge from Rudy, and then you stop. It's almost like this whole fucking fan base stopped watching football in 1993 and forgot that we have to adapt. Alohi Gilman, ever heard of him? He transferred from Navy. It doesn't make sense.
Right, and it's the idea that you're stunting development, but I don't think any Alabama fans were crying when that 5-star linebacker of Tennessee, came to their program, and they're saying, "Well, hold on, you're going to stunt the development of all these players." It's
ridiculous. I don't care who gets mad at me for saying that. Notre Dame fans grow up.
I know for a fact that LSU fans unequivocally regret taking Joe Burrow as a transfer. I mean, that was probably one. That was one of the worst transfers of all time.
It did not work out for
yeah. I mean, their QB right now, like the LSU. I'm sure that they would have preferred to lose that national championship, or not even have made it, in order to have their backup 4-star true sophomore quarterback get a couple of more years to develop and potentially put up some lifetime stats at LSU in favor of the national title. That would have been the better move for them personally, in my opinion. So I could definitely see how people would be cognizant or not cognizant is not the right word, apprehensive in regards to taking all-American transfers. It just apparently it's not going to work out. So I think there's some good logic to it.
I think at the end of the day, it's two things, right? It's one, we need more experience and could use it on the offensive line because we're trying to compete now. And two, most people who evaluate this kid say he's an amazing talent. That's the end of the story. You take him. Let's move on. But speaking of strange decision making, a Caleb Evans, defensive back out of Tulsa,
stinks.
Chooses Missouri over Notre Dame, Texas, his home state, and Georgia. And the reason for that, we were given at the time, was that his coach at Tulsa had moved to Missouri, and so he's a coach there at Missouri. They have that connection. But afterwards, we find out that Missouri offers his teammate at Tulsa, and he committed to Missouri as well. So the two of them are going to Missouri, and that seems to be why he's not playing for the Irish this year. Do you guys have any kind of thoughts on this? Because it really seemed like we were going to win this one up until the last few days.
Looking at their schedule right now, they are going to go 4-8, and they are going to win one conference game, and that's against Vanderbilt.
And they play Southeast Missouri State at some point.
Yes, they play Southeast Missouri State, so that's one win. They're also going to win against Central Michigan. They're going to win against North Texas, and then they're going to win against Vanderbilt. Not because the coach is bad, because we obviously love the coach over at Vanderbilt. It's just he hasn't had an opportunity to bring in his guys yet. So yeah, they're going to go 4-8 with one conference victory, and congratulations, you're a loser.
Yeah, it's not a game time issue because he was going to start at Notre Dame anyway. So it's about the comfort and loyalty to a coach and the comfort and loyalty to a teammate, which is fair enough. But if your goal is to get to the NFL and to compete, which is the goal for grad transfers, Notre Dame was clearly the best option. And by all accounts, he had a great visit. It wasn't an issue of fit. It was just, I think he was loyal to his coach and loyal to his friend. And I wish him the best, but it's a strange decision from the outside looking in.
I don't wish him the best. You're either with us or against us.
I will not comment on any player who doesn't play for Notre Dame. The SEC is a great institution and it has very high academic standards.
Did you mean to say corrupt or great?
I said what I said.
I believe that's his past sentence, like his key sentence when he's being taken hostage to let you know he's got a gun to his head. That was it.
All right, I'll speak for you. Corrupt.
Okay, last one. Jay Brunell, wide receiver, leaves. I had him at the bottom of the depth chart beforehand.
Who?
It does leave us with a problem with no receivers from that 2019 class at Notre Dame. So we got a bunch of seniors and a bunch of freshmen. People are blaming Del Alexander. People are blaming Coach Kelly. I understand the problem of not getting talent in early. We talked about that with Jordan Johnson. But again, if anything, this opens up time and space for Lorenzo Styles and Deion Colsey and Jaden Thomas. I wish Jay the best. I truly do. It is what it is, right? I'm not too concerned about it.
I'm gonna everything you just said. I am in 200% agreement, and I have nothing else to add.
Perfect. I promised 10 to 15 minutes, and we have blown past that. So let's try to speed it up a bit. Playoff proposal. For those of you who are living under a rock, the NCAA committee that Jack Schwarbeck is a part of, the athletic director at Notre Dame, has put a proposal forward for a playoff expansion, which would include 12 teams. 6 of the highest ranked conference champions are guaranteed spots, and then the 6th highest other teams are guaranteed spots. And the controversy around this is that 4 teams will get a bye. And those 4 teams will be the 4 highest ranked conference champions, which means Notre Dame will not be eligible for a bye. 2 things we want to talk about on the subject. One, as fans of this sport, all 3 of us are in agreement here. We do not like a huge expansion. We like 4, 6, potentially 8. However, from a Notre Dame perspective, 12 is a slam dunk victory. We are going to be in the playoff pretty much every year now. With that said, what are your guys' thoughts on this proposal, the buy, the number, how it affects Notre Dame, etc.?
It guaranteed independence forever. That Notre Dame needs to be in the ACC. No, they don't.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Like this 12-team proposal guarantees Notre Dame is going to A, be independent, B, play a stronger schedule, and C, hopefully get some of these teams from scheduling School of the Deaf to play against them. No offense to Gallaudet, but it's one of those things where everyone's all up in arms. Oh, they don't get a bye week. I don't give a shit if they don't have a bye week. They can be AP number 1 and be the 5th seed playing some 12
shit team. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Coastal Carolina. Ooh, I'm so scared of the Chancellors. So it doesn't matter. Let Notre Dame be the 5 seed, but the number 1 team in the country. Let us get a game at home in South Bend. Have a team from California. Have a team from the SEC come up to South Bend in friggin' December. Good luck with that. There's a reason USC didn't want to play in December. That's my
Steve?
take.
Yeah. I mean, the number 12 team in 2019 was Notre Dame at 11-2. The number 11 team was 10-4 Wisconsin. So, I mean, you're basically looking at 10 wins and in. A majority of the years that Notre Dame gets 10 wins, they're in the playoffs. I think we are good enough to get past the first round in probably 80% of the years that we do make it in, right? So that means we're at least playing in the final. How do we number that out? Because right,
it'll be the quarterfinals.
Yeah, so we're making it to the quarterfinal. Out of the next 10 years, like 8 of them is pretty much, or maybe seven of them is. So it's cool in that aspect. So we are going to have a lot more exposure and a lot more access to the playoffs, even if we have a less than stellar team. Obviously, last couple of years we've been stellar. So it does allow us. Before this, a loss ended the season. It ended all hope. 11-1 Notre Dame.
Well, maybe
11-1 Notre Dame was typically the 5 or 6 seed. I mean, depending on some things that would shake out, sometimes we snuck into the 4, as we've seen a few times over the last years. But by and large, every single game was a must win. This takes a little bit of pressure off, and I think is going to let the guys buzz around and have a little bit more fun.
And this is why I told independence needs to go, folks. That's not going to be an issue much longer, because the playoff was going to expand. And as soon as it expands, like P said, it guarantees independence forever. They may think this is a strong arm move to push Notre Dame into a conference, but we will gladly trade a first round bye for our independence, our scheduling flexibility, one less game on the schedule, plus a home field playoff game. It does make everything harder. It's going to be harder to win a national championship. But on the flip side, because of the 4 bye conference champion rule, in the second round, we might get an easier game, right? There's not many good conferences in this sport. There's the SEC. There is the ACC winner, which is Clemson, which, we'll see how long they're at the top of college football for. And then there's Ohio State. So you have 3 really good programs in conferences. That 4th conference team is going to be Oklahoma or Oregon. And if we're the 5 seed, that's who we're going to play in the second round if we win our first round game. I like that. That puts us back into the semifinal. It still makes things harder. You just have to win 2 games to get back to where you were, but the opportunity is there. And I'm warming up to this format. My issue has been there's never been more than 6 good teams in a season anyway, but this is going to be more fun games. A lot of the bowl games are meaningless, so this kind of puts a little more meaning in college football. I am concerned with the season going too long, but
17 games.
They're going to figure it out, right? They're on top of that. So this is very good for Notre Dame. Losing the bye sucks, and I wish Jack would fight harder for it. I think if we go 12-0 and we're in the top 4, we deserve it. Likewise, if Georgia, who finishes second in the SEC, but is the 3rd-ranked team in the country, they deserve a bye as well. I don't think this just impacts Notre Dame. I think this impacts all good teams in good conferences. But is what it is. 12's going to help us overall, and I'm looking forward to playing in the playoff and hopefully getting a home game in South Bend. And it also gives us the opportunity of playing Michigan or USC.
Michigan they'll never make the playoff. The poverty schools over there. Neither. They'll never make the playoff. As long as I live, you'll never see USC in the playoff. You'll never see Michigan in the playoff. They suck, and we all know that.
How fun would it be if we played like our big rival in the playoff?
Oh,
That'd be pretty cool.
that would be the best. But
Sidebar. Are we going to completely ignore the fact that Michigan is deserving of the death penalty as a school?
Yeah.
I don't think we're allowed to talk about it. But
are we going to go there right now, or are we going to save this for later?
Let's save that before we get canceled. I've said a lot of cancelable things this podcast.
It's not that it's a canceled thing, because obviously we'd be taking the side of victims. That's not an issue. It's just that we need to get to the depth chart here, and we could talk about their hero Bo's unbelievable actions. But
yeah,
Muck Fishigan is the end of it. Okay. That's it for proposal. As far as recruitment goes, I just want to let you guys know that in June and July, a lot of recruits are announcing their picks. As you guys know who have been following, Notre Dame has had so many kids on campus from the 2022 and 2023 classes. It's looking good. Our friend, our linebacker from California, Junior Tuel Halamaka. I'm getting better, but it's still a work in progress. He's announcing Saturday. So that'll be the day after this is up. Jalen Sneed is probably going to announce soon. You'd think Billy Schroth might as well. There's just a lot of really talented kids out there who are announcing soon. So keep an eye on for that. And things are going well for Notre Dame, and that's pretty much the gist of it. So without further ado, this long process is over. We have the depth chart. This has been basically, I'll tell you the methodology here, folks. It's what we had last season, plus what we've seen in the blue and gold game, plus what we've read from insiders, plus our own talent evaluations and our own guesses. This isn't the depth chart we want. This is just what we think is going to happen, and we expect it to change as more things come in. We do give a little bit of deference to seniority over, freshmen, for example, in the lower spots. But as you'll see, I think this is pretty solid. I keep looking at it, and I don't think it could be more accurate at this point in time. So, Steve, I'm going to let you go first because quarterback's the most important position out there. You're the most important person in my life. Let's start this off. How do you like the quarterback group? And do you want to just list the order we have them in for the audience?
Yeah, certainly. Just starting, obviously, with the starter, working our way down. Jack Cohn, you expect, what is he, a fifth or sixth year senior? Because there's the COVID year. I know he missed a year to injury. So is he 5 or 6 years in?
I think he's 5, but he doesn't have eligibility because the injury occurred the same year as the COVID year, and you only get one. You don't get both.
Okay, so he's a 5th-year senior. He was a 3-star guy out of New York, Long Island, I'm pretty certain.
Played lacrosse with Mrs. Wagon's cousin, so very important to me. Continue.
Very extraordinarily important. And Cohn had a pretty darn good career over at Wisconsin, which is, that they are absolutely a run-first offense. He's been very efficient. He's had good stats. He's had, in some cases, you can look at his stats, and he was either more efficient or equally as efficient as Ian Book. So is he going to be a game breaker? Is he going to be a DJ Ukulele or, a Joe Burrow? I'm never going to get his name correct. I know how to say it. I'm just
Uyangalele. I think that was close.
It's ukulele. I'm going to be a dickhead for the rest of my life. I might as well embrace it. But yeah, he's not going to be a game breaker. He's not a 5-star guy, but he steps up with experience, with good statistics behind an offensive line that's massively talented, just unproven. So you got to expect that Cohn is really going to break out, and he's obviously going to be looking for a 3rd-round pick, 4th-round pick to follow in Ian Book's steps. Next up, we got Drew Pine. Pine's up against it, man. I mean, you got to expect that this kid's going to be throwing everything he has, the entire kitchen sink, to really cement himself this year, because obviously Buckner is right on his behind here. And then you have redshirt freshman Brendan Clark behind him, and then Ron Paulus, who's kind of just a depth add-on guy. But Pine is going to be giving everything he possibly can to prove himself and make sure he belongs, trying to steal the spot from Buckner in the future. Buckner is the second coming of Jesus Christ himself, and we'll see him next year potentially, probably. But yeah, I mean, Cone looking really good off the bat and looking like a guy that can be a game manager with an incredible defense on his side, which is going to translate to a lot of wins.
Pete, do you think it's controversial we have Cone as the starter, or do you think that's pretty much a given now?
No, it's correct. It's not controversial at all. Drew Pine is 5'11". Not that other 5'11" quarterbacks didn't do well in Notre Dame, but Jack Cone is 6'5". He'll be the second tallest Notre Dame quarterback, behind a tight end who beat Drew Brees back in the early 2000s. But height means a lot. Game ability means a lot. Drew Pine, unfortunately, has only gotten garbage time against Alabama and some other assorted teams like that. And Jack Cone's an overall better quarterback. Unless Drew Pine does something this summer to become the second iteration of Tom Brady, he's not starting.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think the real issue or the real dilemma is between 2 to 4. Pine, Buckner, Clark is how I've listed them. Clark is coming off a very nasty injury. He'll probably be ready for the season, but look, he's a specialist quarterback. There's more talent. Maybe he would actually play before Buckner, but I just think at the end of the day, he's probably our fourth quarterback at the moment. Not that I don't have faith in him. It's just the injury, the talent coming in, the future. I got him 4. I have Buckner 3 and Pine 2. I think I have a suspicion, and maybe I'm wrong here, that's kind of Pine as the backup might be just for show. And I think if Jack Cone is to suffer a serious injury in the first game of the season, I'm not unconvinced that Tyler Buckner would come in and start. I think Tyler Buckner could make that leap, and they would just roll with him. Maybe I'm wrong there. I think you'll see Pine in mop-up duty, but look, Buckner's the future here, and I feel pretty comfortable with this quarterback group. Lots of talent. And like you said, Steve, the combination of the defense with what Jack can bring, I think we're in for a big season. This Notre Dame is going to regress is a pretty, I think, off perspective, and I think the quarterback is one of the reasons why. So moving on, we'll try to get through this just a little bit quicker here. So we got running back, no surprises really. Kyron Williams is going to start. Chris Tyree is going to pick up more snaps as the second. Sibo Flemster, who is easily the third best running back in the country, meaning like the third depth chart running back in the country. Like no team right now has a better third
Number
backup
3,
than Sibo Flemster. Sorry, I confused everyone. Then 4 and 5, 2 freshmen. It didn't really matter which way you listed them. I went with Audric Estime, New Jersey Offensive Player of the Year from high school, and then Logan Diggs, who's a fantastic talent from Louisiana. Steve, I know you've been following kind of recruitment of all these guys pretty closely. I remember when Chris Tyree committed, you basically just spasmed. So what's your kind of short evaluation of this running back class?
Kyron legitimately might be the first running back off the board in the next draft. There's been talk of that. I think at the very least, he's probably a second to third round pick. And that's not because he's not good enough to be in the first round. I just think it's an under or more so a devalued position in the NFL. Chris Tyree, Lightning, Sibo, Thunder, that's our Lightning Thunder combo. I love Sibo, and I think that's a great analysis. I don't think you go down to the third guy in the depth chart and across the nation and find a guy with his type of talent. Audric Estime is an absolute bowling ball. He kind of reminds me of Jonas Gray. And then Logan Diggs reminds me of a Theo Riddick. He's a guy that can go out into the slot, make some catches, but he's also shifty and can be inside as well. So I think we have great balance and incredible depth, and we're really set up to run the ball a lot this year.
Don't say that. Let's say run the ball a lot on second and 2.
Run the ball efficiently this year.
There we go.
Okay.
I hope Audric Estime wears whatever number Jerome Bettis wore at Notre Dame, which I believe is number 6, because that boy is big. I love him. I can't wait to see him. We'll probably see him more in the following year because I imagine Kyron goes to the draft and Sibo leaves to the draft or graduates or whatever. So Tyree, Estime, Diggs, plus our current class will be next year, and I think that's pretty sharp too. So we'll do wide receiver here as a group, but I'll just list them. Notre Dame plays an offense where there is a field wide receiver, meaning the open field, a boundary receiver, meaning closer to the side of the football, and then a slot receiver. A lot of people are criticizing this position, but at the top, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I really like this group. I have Braden Lenzy as your starting field receiver with Xavier Watts backing him up. I think if there's anywhere where I'm wrong on this depth chart, it is there, because Lorenzo Styles is third field receiver on my depth chart. I think that could flip. I think Lorenzo Styles might be the backup field receiver come September. And then Jaden Thomas, who just got to Notre Dame recently, I believe, just a couple weeks ago, the last guy on the field wide receiver position. You look at boundary, this is more of your big-bodied guy. So Kevin Austin, if he's healthy, I think is going to have a breakout season. I know we've been saying that for a while. Backing him up looks like Joe Wilkins, but I wouldn't be surprised if the third string guy here, Deion Colsey, takes his spot. I think Deion's going to be fantastic. This is a big-time Georgia recruit. This receiving group we had coming in. He could have been a
Bulldog.
Could have been a Bulldog. Styles could have been an Ohio State Buckeye because his father was, I believe. So this is a good class coming in, and we have good seniors who just haven't had the health to prove it. And in the slot, I really like our slot receivers. Avery Davis has had a fantastic spring, and the next best spring performer on the offense, in my opinion, was Lawrence Keys. I like both guys in the slot, and I think Davis starts, but I'm comfortable with either of them. So overall, how do you feel about this group? P, I'll go with you here.
Yeah, it's a group of wide receivers. Hopefully they can catch the ball. I don't really have much to say about them. I think with everything that you see here, you have a lot of the older talent with Davis and Austin. Lenzy, he's played, but he hasn't made an impact yet, so he better earn that 0 number, or they can burn that jersey. And then, the younger guys, you have 3 freshmen and a sophomore who arguably haven't gotten a lot of playing time. So it may not be this year. I hope it is. If it's not this year, you're going to see a lot of development with them, with TB12 down the line. Because of the lack of depth, they're all going to have to play sometime this season. I think using the 4-game rule to redshirt will help a lot as well. It's not like the Little League World Series. They don't have a pitch limit for these players. So arguably they could play 4 full games this season and still redshirt. So I think it's definitely good to have the players that we have and the ages that we do, because then you'll see in 2022, 2023, the eventual new recruits in, with these guys being the older guys, and hopefully none of them transfer.
Steve, you have followed recruiting very closely forever. You know these guys coming in. Which freshman do you think is most likely to get playing time, and do you think it's likely they will get playing time?
I'm going to immediately go with Deion Colsey, and I think that's so Joe Wilkins, I honestly think he's the most underrated guy on the depth chart. Truthfully, yep. I think he has it in him to really break out, and he's right there, man. And I really want to see him, because even if we get into 4 wide receiver sets, there's no reason he shouldn't be on the field. A 4 wide receiver set should be, Lenzy, Austin, Wilkins, and Davis and or Keys, just kind of, flipping those guys. But so those are your 5 kind of key guys that should be contributing. But if anything happens to Austin, who unfortunately has been injury prone, Braden Lenzy has been injury prone, Joe Wilkins, massively talented, but has not proven too much. I think he has it in him, though. That does open the door potentially to Deion Colsey stepping in and being that dude. I think he's like 6'4", 2 something. So like he reminds me of like a Michael Floyd. It might take him a while to get knock on wood. Let's say Austin and Wilkins stay healthy all year and both of them produce great. Perfect. Gives Colsey some time to really just develop and focus on his game. But if he has to be forced in for any reason, which is a distinct possibility, he is a dude. And Jaden Thomas, although we have him as the field guy, can also be in the slot. And I think that's also where he may get some time. JT is they said that he's basically, instead of a 50-50 guy, he's an 80-20 guy. You throw the ball up, JT's coming down with it. Kind of like, Chase Claypool, which was like, you get the ball up to Claypool, he's coming down with it. So JT would love to see, some more routes. Like to see him run the full route tree. Would like to see his experience there. Obviously very inexperienced coming in as a true freshman, but the talent is there coming out of the state of Georgia, where this guy could be an absolute baller. So I'd say, although Zoe Styles is incredibly talented, I think Colsey or JT are your two candidates to potentially get on the field this year.
It's interesting. I would have said Styles because he could also play slot like Thomas, and he did get a start in Sprague, and he's actually been at Notre Dame. He enrolled early, so I kind of would lean Styles there, but I like that we both see it where they could all play, and that's healthy, right? You want to get some game time in there. So let's moving over to tight end. Just imagine what this would look like with Tommy Tremble, but unfortunately he declared to the draft, and he's going to be a fantastic NFL player. We got Michael Mayer, obviously one of the most supreme talents we've seen play the tight end position at Notre Dame, and he's only in his second year. Then I've got George Takis, Kevin Ballman, and then the two freshmen, Kane Barong and Mitchell Evans. To me, this is a deep group, but to me, this is a one tight end matters kind of group. As good as those other guys are, Michael Mayer should be playing pretty much every snap.
Yeah, that is a good take. Really, with this group, you could see, and it won't happen, but Tommy could run a 5 wide receiver set with tight ends. So, Coach Reese, if you listen to this, which I know you do, run a 5 wide receiver set with tight ends. Make it a matchup nightmare. And it's not unexpected that Notre Dame gets these type of tight ends. And you could see some of them, kind of like what Tommy Tremble did, depending on how their fall develops and their agility. They could play that H-back, F-back position and be a blocking tight end out of the backfield.
Yeah, that's what I liked with Tommy Tremble, was when he played that position. So let's move on to the most controversial group of the bunch.
Do you have something to say? Yeah, just a really quick point. We know we're going to get production in the passing game out of Mayer and Takis, however, I'll figure it out. He has been on the field and has some experience. What I am most looking for, I don't care about the passing game. I know we're going to get good production. I'm very concerned about if we're in a 22 set, if we have two tight ends out there, what is the running game going to look like? What's the blocking going to look like from these guys? Is it going to equate to a guy like Tommy Tremble like last year, who was an absolute monster? Even Barack Wright in his own right. He was incredible at blocking as well. That's where I think they're going to add the most value, and that's the most kind of up in the air thing right now. So just keep an eye on that, and I'll now we can go on to the offensive line.
Yeah, so the most puzzling one at least has been the offensive line, because you didn't know where anyone's going to play. But the addition of Kane Madden, I think, has made things a lot simpler, and my gut feeling has been kind of confirmed by a lot of people's gut feeling. So I'll run through our offensive line as a unit, and then I'll go through the depth chart. So I have, starting at left tackle for what might be the first time in so long, a true freshman, Blake Fisher, who in our 2 deep depth charts earlier this winter, we had off of it, and I think he took exception to that. So right now, Blake Fisher is the starting left tackle at Notre Dame. We move over to left guard, and then it is going to be Jarrett Patterson. I think they're going to kick him over for center, because I think the center, and the guy who was recruited as a center, Zeke Correll, we saw a little bit of him last year. I think he's going to be starting. Right guard, you have second-team All-American Kane Madden. And then on the right tackle spot, Josh Lugg. Looks like they're not going to move him in, but they will keep him out. So just going through the left tackle position now, we've got Blake Fisher, number 1, Tosh Baker, number 2. That seems to be the camp battle. And then a guy I think everybody loves, Joe Alt from Minnesota, freshman coming in. He's going to get to learn as a deputy third left tackle. P, you're my offensive line guy. You're my Blake Fisher guy as well. We're all Blake Fisher guys, but Blake Fisher is your guy. What do you feel about this group?
So, looking at it, just not on the depth chart, but on the offensive tab, you see a lot. And I know that sounds stupid to say, but Blake Fisher and Joe Alt both being freshmen, that's huge. If we need to, a couple years down the line, Joe Alt moves to right tackle, Blake Fisher stays at left. You have a Mike McGlinchey on both sides there. So I'm very high on Blake Fisher just because he's a monster. He's agile. He recently ran like 12 miles an hour on a treadmill, which is insane. He's just an athlete, and he mauls people. And I think him, Spindler, Alt, you put them all together there, it's going to be a savage offensive line for the next few years. So very high on him.
Right. So let's move over to left guard, and I'll bring Steve in a moment. So we got Jarrett Patterson, our most experienced offensive lineman, one of the best, I think, in college football. I think it's very helpful to have him next to Fisher, and I think that's why they're going to put Patterson at guard and not at tackle, is because he's going to be in between two newcomers in Correll and Fisher, so he can kind of help out on both sides of them. But I think you got Jarrett Patterson starting. One of my favorite guys in this whole roster, Rocco Spindler, I have as the backup left guard right now. Usually we go seniority, but I think, no disrespect to Quinn Carroll, but I think Spindler is just such a talent that he's going to leapfrog him on the step chart. Quinn Carroll third, and then another freshman incomer, Pat Coogan. He's going to learn the ropes too. So that's my left guard group. Steve, what do you think there? Is that pretty solid?
Yeah. I mean, Quinn Carroll, Rocco Spindler, kind of 1-2. And for a true freshman to come in and kind of push the limits, even in Blake Fisher on the left side, it's impressive that we're able to replace and reload so quickly. At the left tackle position, I personally think that Tosh Baker will probably take it. Being a redshirt freshman, 6'8", 300 pounds, he is a mover of men. But I mean, if Blake Fisher has to play, he's obviously well equipped and he's a monster as well. But the entire left side, although unproven, it's still going to be massive. I mean, these guys are huge, and there's going to be a lot of meat to move out there. And I don't see any defensive lines dominating them. I see some defensive lines, if they're really quick, giving them trouble just because they, like P, as you've mentioned, adapting to the speed of the game. But when it comes to overpowering these guys, I don't see it happening at all.
It's a good take. So looking at center, there's not much to really discuss here. Zeke Correll's the starter. If he's hurt, Jarrett Patterson is the backup, meaning either Spindler, Carroll, or Kristovic will move to left guard. But that's the way I see it. Pretty straightforward there. I like that side. And on the right side, this is where Kane Madden helps so much. So you just plug him in here. Your right side you got a right side quality of Jarrett Patterson, right? You got two. I don't want to say two Jarrett Pattersons, but essentially you got two very veteran, talented guys in your guard positions to help out. So I like Kane Madden here. I think he's going to win. I don't think he would have come here if he wasn't going to win the spot. I got Andrew Kristovic as the backup, John Dirksen as the third right guard, and Hunter Spears as the fourth. I don't know if there's too much to talk about, so I'll just move ahead to right tackle, and we'll get your thoughts there. Josh Lugg will be the starter. I've got Michael Karamodi as the backup, and then I have another true freshman, Caleb Johnson, I believe a flip from Auburn, as the third right tackle. So, P, looking at that right side of the offensive line, how do you feel both starting and in terms of depth?
I'm going to throw you for a loop here. I don't like the right side of the line. I think if we really had to, you throw Blake Fisher at left tackle. He's not a right tackle. And then Mr. 6'8", Tosh Baker, move him to the right side of the line. Then you would have Fisher, Patterson, Correll, Madden, and Baker starting there. Lugg is capable. Baker is capable. I think the right tackle spot is the biggest toss-up of the entire offense right now. And then you could, even if you really wanted to, if you wanted to get Spindler in there, move Patterson out. There are talks about moving Patterson outside if Spindler has a camp and a half. So I don't love starting two freshmen on the left side of the line, but they're dudes all over the place. But right tackle is by far the weakest part of the group, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think what you get with this group, this whole 5-man plus unit, you have a lot of flexibility, That's the one thing is Jarrett Patterson can play all 5 positions. So if you're feeling weak on the left guard spot, he starts there. If you feel like you need help at right tackle, you can move him over there, which I like. I like that flexibility. I do not see Kane Madden hurting anybody's development here. I think Kristovic and Quinn Carroll are third-year starters now, or third-year players now. They can compete and win. They can compete for a backup spot, and they will always have next year as well. I like our offensive line group. There are question marks, less so than a couple weeks ago. But, if Blake Fisher comes in, does his thing, I feel pretty good about it as a whole. Steve, do you have any kind of thoughts on the offense as a whole before we move on to the defense here?
No, I mean, I think I'm mirroring exactly what you guys mentioned. Left side is going to be unproven, but they are so ridiculously talented. I think they're just not going to be easy to beat. Right side, thank God for Madden adding his experience, but Lug's a dude. Lug is he's going to be moving bodies out there. It's just, can he do so for a full 60 minutes? And is he going to step up in the biggest moments? I think he definitely has it in him. I think any guy that is signing with Notre Dame right now, you have to be a baller. So I'm confident in them, but I could definitely see the right tackle position being, if we do have a concern, being the concern.
Yeah, it's definitely the offensive line group is the most question marked on offense and maybe in the whole team. But we're going to learn a lot, I think, over the summer and into the season. So I'm looking forward to it. Let's move over to defense now. We'll talk defensive end. I'll start with the Viper position. For those of you who don't know, the Viper position is the one who rushes and then drops back into passage about 15% of the time. So this is usually your Dalen Hayes, your Julian Okwara, this prototype of defender, and that's what Marcus Freeman said he's going to keep. So we'll see a lot of linemen, but on this side I got Isaiah Foskey starting. I don't think there should be any controversy there. He is just an animal, and he's only in his 3rd year, I think.
Correct. True junior.
True junior. He's going to be something. He reminds me of Stephon Tuitt when Stephon Tuitt was breaking through at a young age. Back behind him, I have one of the most impressed players of the spring game, Jordan Botello. Really like what that young man brings. Behind him, I've got Osita Ikwonu. And then behind him, I have true freshman Will Schweitzer. That's the Viper position. And then on the other defensive end position in a 4-man front, the strong end, which is usually more of your run defender, big type. So you're thinking there more about Addy or Khalid Kareem. So basically the confirmed position for Myron Tagovailoa Amosa is this defensive end, strong. He's going to start there. He looked really good in the spring game. Behind him, Justin Admiola. Man, he's only been here for 4 years. I like him as well. Then you got Steve's favorite player in the world, Nana Osafo-Mensah. Behind him, Alex Ahrensberger. And then last on the depth chart, just for now, because he's another true freshman, Jason Onye.
Hendrickens' finest. Rhode Island, stand up.
There you go. Northeast representation. At the end of the day, you have 2 guys starting the defensive end position, and I feel like we have 5 starting capable players. Am I crazy, or do you see that on the depth chart?
No, and what you see here is the ability for Freeman to keep him fresh. With Freeman's defense, he, just judging based off of this, he'll rotate people in. He may have Jordan Botello on 3rd downs, which is a pass rushing situation, and he's much better at that than stopping the run. There's, Jason Onye, seeing him play in person, he's a fucking monster. If he gets bigger, he could even move to defensive tackle and just be havoc at 3-tech there. Alex Ertzenberg, the German, he's 6'8", and he's tall and lanky and fast and good. So Freeman has free reign to play all of these guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see every single one of these 9 players play.
Yeah, there's so much depth, so much quality. I mean, Foskey, Botello could both start. I'd feel comfortable, and then Myron Justin, Nana. I feel like they're all starting capable players as well. I count 5 starters to play 2 spots, and I think that's the strength of this team this year is going to be the D line. I'll go to Steve for the D tackle positions here because some of our favorite players play. So you look at the 3 tech. I got Jason Admiola. He's only been here for 4 years too. Riley Mills, who was just destruction in the spring game and whenever we've seen him in the season last year. And then I think my favorite player in the entire incoming class, Gabriel Rubio. If this was a normal position, Gabriel Rubio might be starting, but there is so much talent at defensive tackle that just by default, he's probably the 3rd guy here, but he's going to get game time, maybe less meaningful snaps, but he's going to be a monster. Then you look at the nose guard, or I think of it more as a 1 tech, but Notre Dame lists it as nose guard. Kurt Heinisch, perennial, he's going to be the new Sean Crawford. He'll be here for 15 years. Love him. Backing him up, Jacob Lacey, I think is an easy starter as well. Howard Cross, who I also think could be a starter, is the 3rd nose guard. And then new player, Aiden Kianaina.
Say it. No, one more time. I want to hear it.
Aiden Kianaina.
Kianaina.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm Canadian. I'm not used to seeing names that aren't like
Hawaiians have never invaded Canada.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So that's our D tackle group. Steve, I've been talking for too long here. What do you feel about the 3 tech and nose guard?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have 5, potentially 6 guys that are going to be able to step up. Howard Cross is a bowling ball whenever we've seen him on the field, and most of it's been garbage time, obviously, because he's a younger developing player. But I mean, he literally will just plug anything that he's in. Riley Mills, he is a lot more athletic than most guys his size. I feel like he moves pretty well, and that's why we saw him last year in some limited capacity, and I think he, especially with Jay Adamiola ahead of him, I think those 2 can kind of honestly do maybe 60-40 in terms of splitting time and be quite fine doing so. Kurt Heinisch, take out your shovel and pail and just go and work. That guy, he's as you've mentioned before, P, he's just a union worker. That guy will just show up and give you a solid, 10 years in the NFL. Kind of like a Brett Kiesel type. Just, he's never going to be the superstar, but you know exactly what you're getting. Just, strong and consistent. Jacob Lacey, love the guy. I mean, I think you look across this defensive line, you have legitimately 7 players that are game-breaking talents, and exactly correct. I mean, our trenches are just the envy of a lot of teams out there.
Yeah, that's well said.
Also, I did want to mention Jason Anye. Thank you very much for signing with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I love you very, very much. Fuck Bishop Hendricken. Go Rams.
Yep.
Just Rhode Island Wednesday.
As good as our D-line
he went to my bitter rivals in high school. Like, as much as we hate Michigan, my school hated his school.
Steve, you ever hit up LaSalle Bakery?
Of course I used to go to LaSalle Bakery every day before school.
It's delicious.
It's incredible. If you're ever in Providence, LaSalle Bakery is the spot to go. Okay, next, linebacking core.
Yeah, so I think as good as the D-line group is, the linebacker group is as good because we have so much returning talent here. So I think the unit, and then I'll go through the positions. I think the starting Mike is Drew White, just like last year. I think the starting Will is Shane Simon, just like next year, and I think he could blow up like a superstar. And I believe the heir to the Joker's position will be Jack Kaiser. So let's getting into it a little more deeper here. Mike linebacker, I've got Drew White, then Bo Bauer, then JD Bertrand, and then incoming freshman Kahanu Kia. P linebacker, Mike, that seems like a U-type position. What do you feel in there?
Yeah, I was just looking at it. I like what you said there, but I also think that you can get Drew White. Actually, I have more about the Will, but Drew White, Bo Bauer being on the field at the same time, they're 2 of the same humans in that regard. I do like JD Bertrand as well. I don't know enough about the new freshman coming in to make a comment on that. But if we were to go to the will position, just to parlay that, we have Shane Simon, Maris Leofau, Jack Kaiser, and Devin AUP?
OPU?
Apu?
Ayapu.
Whatever. I could see Shane Simon and Maris Leofau having a battle in camp and Maris Leofau taking this spot. He might be a better third down back or even a first, second down linebacker. It's really dependent on what pass coverage is going to look like there, but I see potential for it to almost be. I'm going to flip this a little bit. Drew White at the mic, then Maris Leofau at will, and with the rover, you can almost move Jack Kaiser around and either have him as a rover or have Bo Bauer there with Jack Kaiser as a second rover and run a 3-4 defense. There's a lot that, and we don't know what Freeman's going to do. There's a lot that we can speculate on, but there's so much talent in all these groups. And for the rover, Jack Kaiser, Isaiah Pryor, Paul Malaya, and Prince Colley, which is an underrated great name. There's just so much talent in that group of 12. They need to get as much talent on the field as possible, whether it's running a 3-4, a 3-5-3, whatever you want there. We need those people on the field to make plays. So that, and it's hard to say because we don't know what Freeman is thinking of right now.
This defense might be better this year, which is crazy. I feel like the D line is better, and I feel like that's unquestionably true. I feel like there's more depth at linebacker than last year. I mean, obviously, JOK is the GOAT, but as a whole and as a unit, I kind of like the linebacker group more this year because you got returning developed talent in Simon and White and Liafau and Kaiser and Bauer. So let's move over to corner. We're getting towards the end here. Field corner, like field receiver, it looks like it's going to be Clarence Lewis. He's kind of the only dependable guy who played last year that you would expect to play this year. Behind him, I have Tariq Bracy. We'll talk a little bit more about Bracy in a second. Behind Bracy, I have Philip Riley. He had a pretty good spring game for what I saw from him. I really like Riley. Caleb offered after Riley. And then lastly, he just got to campus, JoJo Johnson, and I'll talk more about him in a moment. And now let's go to boundary because this would have been where a Caleb Evans would have played, and I think that would have been a fantastic addition. But regardless, I think one of the biggest risers in spring camp has been Cam Hart. He was a wide receiver turned corner, and he has developed to the point where now the coaching staff feels comfortable with him at corner. So Cam Hart is a big-bodied guy. He's going to start the boundary opposite to Lewis. Behind him is Ramon Henderson, who had a very good spring game as well. And then your two freshmen coming in, Ryan Barnes and Chance Tucker. I like the talent there. Those freshmen could take some jobs, but I'm okay with Cam Hart and Ramon Henderson. So as those two positions look, Steve, I'll start with you because I feel like you haven't spoken in a while. How do you like our two corners?
Usually for the best when I don't speak, because every time I open my mouth, I make a fool of myself. No, Clarence Lewis, easily the most experienced guy out there at the corner position, which truthfully is kind of a terrifying sentence to say, but that's fine. We'll buzz right through it. You know, we have the front seven to support these guys. Tariq Bracy, I think he got a bad rap, and I think the matchups that he's had, when the lights were shining the brightest, I mean, he was dealing with ridiculous matchups, and I don't think in a shortened year where he was still what was he, a redshirted freshman? He was still a young guy. I don't think he was really set up for success. So I want to see Tariq Bracy, get more of some more love and not get the Dante Vaughn treatment. I hate that son of a bitch. But anyway, Ramon Henderson is going to be pushed to the limits by Bo Barnes. Bo Barnes is like truly the next lockdown corner. I think of Bo Barnes, our third down the depth chart on the boundary side. He's our next Julian Love, so keep on a lookout for him. He's going to be a baller, and he's going to push those guys ahead of him. Cam Hart, he was a wide receiver, cornerback kind of athlete that could go either way. And he's big bodied. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3", which tends to be kind of the new prototype that we look for in a corner. And with that sort of length and with opposing quarterbacks not having much time at all, you got to look for him to really stick out and have an opportunity to make a name for himself. So, I mean, top to bottom, is this our strongest position? Clearly not. It's clearly not our most experienced position. It's definitely still one of the biggest question marks we've had, which is kind of reminiscent of last year. But at the very least, I can sufficiently say, or confidently say, we definitely took a step forward.
Yeah, there's developed talent here for sure. P, you were shaking your head, so give me your thoughts here.
Two things. I don't like having a corner named Chance. It has to change his name.
Fair.
Just straight up, like, change your name, buddy. And Steve, did you just give Ryan Barnes a nickname?
His nickname is Bo Barnes. So he's Ryan Barnes, but he goes by Bo.
Okay, I wanted to make sure of that. So no, it's more so just the name there. The corners are the corners. Having a more experienced corner in there would have helped. I'm going to throw something crazy out there, and again, we don't know what Freeman's going to do. We do have a backup to Kyle Hamilton, Litchfield Ajavon, who fought Joe Louis when he was 102 years old. It wouldn't be crazy to see Ajavon, KJ Wallace, or Kerry Gee move from safety to corner if they really need it. Almost like the reverse Love, in theory. Julian Love moved from corner to safety, correct?
No, Julian Love was a corner.
It would be the reverse Sean Crawford.
Sean Crawford.
Yeah.
Same human. So,
nope. I'm holding you accountable there. Julian
it's very
Love's
late right now on the East Coast here. But no, you could see a safety move to corner if needed. I'm not in love. I'm not married to any of these boundary corners, but Cam Hart's Cam Hart. We'll see what Freeman and also Kyle Hamilton have to say about what's going on here.
Yeah, I forgot to account for Kyle Hamilton's new role on the offense when I was putting this together.
Play Kyle Hamilton on offense, Tommy.
Before we go to safety, if you'll see on the depth chart, and those of you looking at Twitter, following along, you'll see that there's an arrow in between corner and safety to highlight the slot spot because Marcus Freeman plays with the slot corner. Sometimes that will be the rover. Sometimes that will be a third cornerback. And from what I saw in the spring game and what I can gather using, inferring from information, I don't know, inference, deduction, there we go. I think Tariq Bracy will be the slot corner, and I think we will see a lot of Tariq Bracy this year just because he's the backup to Lewis on the field. Doesn't mean he won't be playing, and I think you're spot on, Steve. I think Bracy got a little too much heat. He was not put in the best position. Confidence was an issue. I think coming into his third or fourth season now, he's gonna have a lot of starting time in his career under his belt, and I think Marcus Freeman and Coach Mickens will put him in a position to succeed, which will be the corner. Slots position, I have behind him KJ Wallace and JoJo Johnson. I think JoJo Johnson is the slot corner of the future. So that's the way that group looks. And finishing off the defense at safety, I believe without question that our pair out there will be Hamilton and Griffith. But to break that down a little bit more, I've got Kyle Hamilton backed up, and it could be by either man here. I've got Litchfield Ajavon because he murdered 2 receivers in the spring game, and I kind of like that. And KJ Wallace is the third guy, could easily be the second guy. And then late comer in our class of 2021, Kerry Gee is going to be a menace. But for now, I just have him as the 4th free safety. And then moving over to the strong safety position, Houston Griffith starting, DJ Brown backing him up, and then freshman Justin Walters being the 3rd. Steve, Kyle Hamilton's your baby boy. We all love Litchfield Ajavon. You know your incoming recruits. How do you evaluate the safety position for 2021?
I'm not even being hyperbolic or exaggerating. I would actually kill a human being if it meant protecting Kyle Hamilton. So let's make that. Wife just heard that. She was not thrilled. I'm dead serious.
That's admissible in court, by the way.
So. Oh, I don't care. Don't care. Houston Griffith. He is the defensive version of Kevin Austin. These are two guys that are so ridiculously highly rated and touted coming out of high school. You look at them play the game when they're healthy, and you're like, holy crap. What is preventing these guys from being All-Americans? I mean, the talent, the size, the speed, the smarts. Houston Griffith, if he is even a quarter of what I think he can be and what everyone is projecting him to be, you're pretty much locking down the center of the field between the defensive line getting up on the offensive line, forcing pressure, between all of our riches at linebackers shutting down the middle of the field and shutting down, the quick routes. You can't go over the top because Kyle Hamilton will pick everything off, and hopefully Houston is there as well. So really the only weakness is going to be on the boundaries, which, as we discussed, hopefully is going to be better. So like it looks like it's all going to pull together. DJ Brown, also very, very talented. I could see him switching down to the slot corner as well if need be, but he tends to be a little bit more of a play on your heels, like safety type. But I mean, there's definitely talent there. It's unproven with the exception of Kyle. Love Litch. I think Litch definitely has a great future here. He's going to be the starter next year because obviously Kyle Hamilton's going to be a top 5 overall pick, legitimately. So, I'm so excited simultaneously while also being terrified because there's a lot of unknown, but there's a lot of promise. And if we get half of what these guys can project to be at the top level, it's going to be an issue. It's going to be a genuine issue. I don't see a Devonta Smith when we inevitably make the playoffs again this year, because we are. I don't see someone dominating us or really stealing a game and just eating up the secondary for 7 and 185. It's not going to happen if those two guys on the back end can play the way that they can.
Right. Well, I just want to jump in and say I'm amazed we've been able to get through this within near an hour, but we're not done because it's P-Wagon's favorite thing in the world. I included special teams in the depth chart, and I will run through it quick, and we will let the expert say everything he has to say. At kicker, Jonathan Dorr is coming back for his last season. He will be backed up, in my opinion, by Josh Bryan, the 6-star incoming freshman. I think he's going to be fantastic one day. But that's our kicking group. Punting group, I got Jay Bramblett, and he is so good, I didn't even list a backup. Long snapper, same guy as last year, Michael Vinson. I believe that is one of the walk-ons. And the backup to him will be Alex Peitsch, Peitsch, Pitch. I don't know. Holder, Jay Bramblett, probably again, and then kick return, punt return. I just listed what they had last year, which is Chris Tyree as the kick returner, Lawrence Keys backing him up, and then Matt Salerno as the punt returner with Lawrence Keys backing him up. That's all kind of speculation and based on whatever happened last year. But with that said, take the floor, P.
All right. So kicking, we do assume Dorr is going to have that spot, but backing him up, I'm really high on my close personal friend and Twitter follower, Harrison Leonard, the kicker from Jamestown, the clam shucking, ball kicking rocket of a man. He's only a sophomore, so you could see him really make some noise here. But then you also do have Josh Bryan, number 1 kicker nationally by Chris Saylor kicking, number 6 nationally and 147th regionally. What region is he from? California. And he's also the number 90th player in California. He is a dude. So yes, Harrison Leonard, Josh Bryan, we're going to have a kicking competition next year. And with Jay Bramblett, family is a fan of the program. Not really sure what else I can say about Jay that hasn't already been said before. I just want everyone to be reminded that we did go into the backyard of Nick Saban, and we stole this punter right out from under his nose. One of the arguably best punters, probably the best punter since Hunter the punter back in the late early 90s. So there's our kicking game right there. Jay Bramblett also can hold, and if Jay Bramblett scores a touchdown this year, you're going to find me in an early grave. My heart will stop. He did play quarterback in high school.
I was going to say
well.
Former quarterback. Yep.
Former quarterback. So yeah, that's really where we're at there. I am really high on not so much Chris Tyree and Lawrence Keys for returning kits, but Matt Salerno. Matt Salerno had a brother on the team by the name of Chris, and with him, he has that love for Notre Dame that you don't see too often with other players. He's 6 foot, surprisingly, and almost 200 pounds. He's also from California, so Valencia, California has been really good for us in terms of people. He had one return for 7 yards against South Florida, and then really he doesn't run the ball much, but I think this is the year he returns one. We haven't had a punt return in a while, but he has this like air about him that I definitely think he could be a valuable asset to the team. And if we're getting teams to punt against us, they don't have the number one punter in the nation. We do. So with that, we should see a return. I wouldn't hate seeing Lawrence Keys return punts as well, just because fast guys are usually better at returning punts than not fast guys.
Well, thank you for that, Coach Special Teams.
The Bramble family, add us on Twitter. Tell us you listen to this. We love Jay.
All right, I think we could wrap this up now. Just overall, as just this has been completed, how do you feel about this roster going into summer and fall of 2021?
I'm cleaning out my closet for national championship gear.
Steve, how do you feel about this team as a whole right now?
Playoff bound.
It looks good. It looks good. I look at this depth chart. I feel comfortable at quarterback, running back. I like our receiver group. I like our tight end group. I think our offensive line group is more than capable. I think we have the best D-line in the country. I think we have arguably the best linebackers in the country. Secondary is scary, but there is potential there. Someone can grab a spot. We don't know who. And then special teams is special teams, man. They matter too, and we have some good talent. So at the end of the day, I think this team is as good as last year. A lot of that will be dependent, though, on Jack Cohn. So let's give him our best. And I think that's kind of it for me. Do you guys have anything you want to talk about before we sign off?
Yeah, shout out Notre Dame baseball. Lost in the Super Regional to Mississippi State. That was our poll question, so there you go. And also, don't tweet at recruits. Don't tweet with recruits in a picture and then tag them in the picture. You're the part of the problem. Let the kids make their own decisions. I say this every week. You two listen to me. Other people don't. Stop tweeting at high school students to come to your university. You are part of the problem. You are not part of the solution. Coaches know a whole lot more than you, and if they wanted you as part of their recruiting staff, they would have hired you. Thank you.
Although
Correct. You can tweet about recruits, but you can't tweet at a recruit.
That's correct. And if you have any questions about if you should or should not, find me on Twitter at pwagon60.
All right, I will say, though, if there are any Notre Dame commits currently or about to commit or who will commit, who wants to come on the show, you have a platform here. Reach out to us. We'd love to have you, but we won't tweet at you. That's kind of the dual nature of the Four Horsemen podcast. Steve, you got something to say before we head off?
I'm going to be waking up in 6 hours, give or take, for my tea time. So let's hope I break 90, and that's everything that I have to say. We're going to get to, obviously, a lot more podcasts throughout the summer, and as we head into the third time in 4 years with our podcast basically being the driving force towards a playoff appearance, I think there's a direct correlation. If you disagree, at me, and then I'll block you because you're stupid.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself. We're clearly the success behind Notre Dame football. So, guys, we're at 969 Twitter followers,
Nice.
Which is exponentially growth from the first season we started. We are, 31 away from 1,000. So please follow us on Twitter, reach out, interact with us, share us with your friends, and most importantly, give us a 5-star rating and a subscribe on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us out, especially if you're fans of this show, because we do this just for fun, because we're 3 idiots with too much time on our hands. And that's really it. I'm looking forward to, if any news breaks, we'll be here. But we'll definitely do, of course, a season preview in August, and then we will definitely be here for September. So from all of us here at the Four Horsemen Podcast, go Irish.